So it's cool to call it the hobby, but be careful because the IRS calls it the hobby. You could be in trouble. So there's something called a hobby loss limitation, and that's after 5 years. If you show a loss 3 out of 5 years, they could go ahead and retroactively disallow all your deductions.
Hey guys, welcome back to the 1,000 Card Project podcast. I'm your host, Ron McKeefrey, and super excited about this one. I got Jonny Petrucco. Jonny is best known as the sports card tax guy, but he's an IRS enrolled agent. He's a QuickBooks Pro advisor, and probably most importantly, he's my personal accountant. Fired to have him on and talk a little bit about the business of collecting and flipping and all those things. But Jonny, I appreciate you being on the show, man.
Yeah, thank you. Excited to be here.
Jonny, talk a little bit. I mean, I think a lot of people, that are going to be listening to this are in that kind of in between of this kind of being a hobby and a business, and maybe don't even view it so much as a business. But anytime you're buying, selling, flipping, I mean that is a business, And so, what are some of let's start with just kind of the formation of an LLC and just like what do you think the benefits of going through that process is versus the disadvantages of not?
Yeah, we're in the hobby, so it's cool to call it the hobby, but be careful because the IRS calls it the hobby. You could be in trouble. So there's something called a hobby loss limitation, and that's after 5 years. If you show a loss 3 out of 5 years, they could go ahead and retroactively disallow all your deductions. The major difference between, like, the IRS will say if you're a hobby, if they classify you that way, then you can only deduct your cost of goods, your purchases of cards. But if you are considered as a business, which is not very hard in the eyes of the IRS to be a business, there's a couple steps you can take. LLC is one of them, but actually you don't have to do that either. So it's going to be customized according to whatever someone wants to do. But if you are classified as a business, then you can deduct operating expenses, your shipping cost and supplies, your travel, all those kind of things. And so there's a lot there. If you, for some reason, get reclassified, then you're going to pay interest and penalties, and it's a big mess. But how do you become like a business? Well, it's self-reported. So everything with the IRS is an honesty, they trust you. They would like to trust you. And so you self-report, I am a business. And if anything's fishy, they can take a look at it. But then you could do that in a variety of ways. There's LLCs. It feels LLC, you feel like that's proper. I'm now Jonny Cards LLC. It feels good, but the primary benefit there is limited liability protection. And so if you had some acid on a card that you shipped and someone would sue you personally, it's only going to help you in terms of legal matters to prevent being sued. Whereas if you operate just under your social security number, but you're operating as a business, then you can still be classified as a business. So there's like 7 tests. I think I did a video on the but basically you want to have an intent to make profit. And if you can show that and you just have some basic habits like separating your personal and business funds, you're good to go as a business.
Yeah, I think a lot to dig into there, actually. A hobby loss and being able to claim that even as on your own personal taxes is something that I hadn't even thought about. I didn't know anything about that. I
Yeah.
don't think a lot of people that are in the hobby do. And so I think when you're talking tax implications for being in this hobby, being in this business, I think there's lots of different things that you could do across the board, whether or not you're just reporting your own accounting or you're forming a business. What are some of the things that you should be thinking about? If you're doing cards, I'm talking about buying and selling and funding your own collection and maybe making a little bit of a profit, but like it's not a ton.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you should be thinking about come tax time that are things that you could either deduct or maybe that you need to make sure you're paying taxes on?
Yeah, your purchases should be, whether you're doing it on the side as a hobby or as a bit, and that's the main thing to track. Because I've been talking to a lot of people recently, and they are now converting their personal collection. They got back into it in 2020 with their son. I have like 3 different cases like this. And the buying 2020 through 2023, 2024. Now they have this accumulation and they want to start a legitimate business, not just for tax deductions, but with their son. It's super cool. But now they have a task of figuring out what is their cost basis. And so they didn't have the habit of tracking things when they were just buying for fun. So that's going to be a major thing, is tracking your costs, your purchases. I mean, technically, so if you go over the threshold and you're a hobby, then that's all you have to look at is your cost, your purchase cost. But if you're a business, then you just have to separate your funds as quick as possible. Everyone starts out commingling, and that's normal. But as soon as possible, you just open up a separate account, and then from now on, just stick all of your purchases, your expenses in that, and then at least it's separated, so it's easy to track. You can find it. But of course, like there's something called reconstructing receipts. And so at a certain point, it's impossible. There's no receipts given at card shows. You can ask. I did ask someone as an experiment and I did not receive one. And so go ahead and ask. I mean, but you just have to have something reasonable and consistent. And so if you're going back a couple of years and you didn't have any kind of Google Sheet or any kind of taking a picture, then you have to reconstruct it. And they're reasonable. So you just do your best estimates. And there's a few methods you can choose for that.
Yeah, I think that's great. That was actually a piece of advice that you gave me last week when we had our call just about accounting. You had said to, instead of trying to ask for a receipt, just take a picture of the cash with the stack of cards or whatever, and
Mhm.
that could kind of work as a receipt. Even that was hard to do sometimes, to be honest with you. It was getting that done. But that was a good tip. What are some other things? I mean, you mentioned tracking or separating into its own account. What are some other things that maybe, again, you're in that middle ground, you don't really want to form the business, but you want to make sure that you're doing things where at the end of the year, you can look at it and say, okay, this is how much I spent on cards. This is how much I brought in on cards. What are some other things that you, or tips that you would recommend people do to do a better job of kind of separating personal from cards?
Yeah, there's a bookkeeping software, like even personally for my family budget, or even just when I personally track my own, I used Wave. It's a software. QuickBooks is like $39 a month now and not necessary for many people. But there are free ones. And of course, like Capital One and Chase, they have their own metric of seeing a budget. So a personal budget is recommended just in life, for everyone to just practice and track. And that is bookkeeping, so your personal tracking will correspond and cross over. I have seen a lot of people's accounts, and very much your personal habits carry over into your business habits. And I've seen this is not a sports card client, but unfortunately, this one lady had about 250,000 in credit card debt, and that was mostly through the business and personal. This is the number one. The personal finances will really cross over, and so if you kind of track your own, then you just add that on to your business. And so I have used like Wave, I think it's waveapps.com, and they have a free version of their software where you do a one-time linking of your bank account and your credit card, and then you just tag, this is going to be purchases, this is supplies, and then you exclude all of your personal transactions, or you can tag them as personal. So at least that'll give you a live, but you have to do something that works for your personality. Now, some people are very good and they enjoy spreadsheets and they don't need automations and they're religious about logging it. I personally don't trust manual entries because mistakes can happen. But if you're good at that, or if you're very good at writing, people balance their checkbooks. Some guys never seen a checkbook, but you have a number that whatever works for your personality, you would try to stick that. But it's good to have you just pick something and then you can track it. I would say the most automated way is going to be your bookkeeping system. You automate it. You can create rules so it predicts and it's less work. Then you can kind of review on a monthly basis or however often.
We ran into this a little bit. I asked you on our call, but when you're going to a card show and you take out cash and maybe you use some of it, not all of it, what's the best way of tracking cash purchases and kind of just loose cash, I guess, that you might have left over?
Yeah, my concern with cash purchases in terms of audit support is if the IRS, there are audits that you get because you are a standard deviation, you're a red flag, you report things and you're just, this is suspicious, or there are random audits. And so if for some reason someone's selected, and they could and they will likely ask for your bank account, and that's what they'll use to tie up to your what you reported. And they see that you had a $4,000 cash withdrawal. Well, that looks like you just took that and put it under your bed. How are they to know? They're going to automatically assume that it was you personal. So that's my concern when it comes to cash purchases in the hobby, is having particularly having support for that, just in case. It's extremely low probability, of course, but you can bake that into your practices. And so when you do PayPal and Zelle, you can type in the description that this was this card that you bought and so forth, and that's all easy to show. But for cash purchases, just a kind of log. I mean, I like using a Google form. I can just punch it in real quick, and then it shoots it into a Google Sheet. You can put it into your notes or whatever the case, take pictures of the cash in the card. But then you could deposit. I mean, some people will withdraw 4,000 and then deposit 5,000 when they get back, or deposit 1,000. You could do that. That's fine. But ultimately, anything that you withdraw out, you kind of want to eventually show where that went, especially if it was you withdraw 4,000, you would deposit 1,000, so you can show the 3,000 purchase.
When you've done this on your own and you've put together like a stack, you went to the dollar box and you pulled out 50 cards.
Mm-hmm.
You're not typing all 50 cards into PayPal or Zelle with a note. Like, how are you documenting that?
There's going to be a difference between operational, what helps you as a business owner now understand your margins and understand what's working for you, what sport, what's your specialty, versus tax implications. I mean, you can be a little more generic. As always, it's better to be specific, but for sure, yeah, 50 cards, $1 each. But then for your organizational managerial purposes, on the other end, maybe it's too much work to track your $1 purchases. So you should do whatever is best managerially, and then that usually should be sufficient for tax purposes.
So you've got into this. I mean, you're an accountant by trade, obviously, but your dad owned a card shop, and you probably always collected. And now you've started your YouTube channel. What was the reasoning for kind of? It's not a pivot because you still have your practice and your accounting practice, and you still very much have normal clients. But this pivot towards the sports card space, from at least an external, and having this kind of niche online. What was kind of the goal behind that, or the motivations behind that?
Yeah, I'm glad I did it. It's pretty fun. Since 2001, my dad bought and sold sports cards. So I grew up mainly with the physical Beckett price guide, and I priced so many cards. I would list them on eBay when I was 8 years old. I was listing and going to all these things, and always had the best gifts for my friends. So that was very fun growing up in that. And the idea was, I mean, it's Petrucco's Collectibles. So it was, I mean, I was the ideal candidate. I have two sisters. So it's always been like, I could take it over. Went to college for accounting. I arbitrarily chose that just because my dad was in business and I liked math. I was a math major initially, but accounting sounded like it was cool, business and math. And so I chose that. I enjoyed it. I loved corporate accounting, managerial accounting, because it's all about decision making. The first sentence of the accounting textbook is accounting is a language of business. And you need these numbers because they tell a story and they help you make real decisions if you can interpret what they're saying. So I really enjoyed that. And then I worked in accounting, but yeah, the business was fortunately not for me. I took a little path in accounting, and then in 2020, when things started booming, I was aware because my dad's sales had doubled and up to tripled, and I was his accountant. So that's how I started with doing his books. And then I have my own, hair salons, HVAC, car washes, law firms, random clients, and bookkeeping and tax. And then about 7 months ago, I tore up all the content because I was considering how can I target my services. And I just had so much fun, like 4 hours a day, listening to every single podcast I can get a hold of and discovering all of the new things in the hobby, and then not discovering any dedicated resource to this kind of stuff. Because as I pour through all of the forums and Facebook groups, there are so many genuine questions. One of the YouTube videos because they would once a year they would put like taxes and sports cards, and I'd read every comment, and a number of good questions were asked, but no one responded to those comments. And then some responded, and I cringed at the response. So that was clear that I could try something. I never wanted to do like YouTube, be a YouTuber. That's been a fun learning journey, but I'm committed now. That's a big hump, you know. I have my weekly videos, and I have so many ideas. I didn't think I would have enough to share on, but yeah, so I just want to be like the resource. And then I know I need a business, I need income as well, but thankfully it is like my goal of being the resource. Definitely I'm getting new clients and able to really help people, give them the clarity and no stress. Trading IRS stress. I am I'll trade you your IRS stress for financial success. So that's the little slogan.
Yeah, I like it. Well, it worked on me, and Johnny just does just a good job with sports cards as well. But I mean, I think just small business owner and building a business. He's been instrumental for me, and um, definitely recommend. I think it's been cool just to kind of see your growth from the beginning of growing this sports card channel, YouTube channel. Where I mean, again, I think it's something that you're perfectly set up. 'Cause there's so many people that are doing this, but they're having the same questions that I did, but and they
Yeah.
don't really understand all the accounting terms. I mean, things as simple as profit margin and cost of goods and, all these different things like those are, unless you go to learn those things, you might have a general understanding, but you really don't know. And I guess for you, for, obviously the, the gold standard is to get an accountant that understands these things. And I think if you're out there and you don't have one, Johnny's your guy. There's no doubt about it. But like for the person that's just a layman person that's just trying to understand, like what's a good profit margin when I go to buy a car, like what should I sell that for? What should how do I account for all the fees and the things along those lines? Like what are some of the terms? What are some of the places that you can go and learn some of these things to set yourself up better to where you can make this more legitimate?
Yeah, your margin is sales, how much you sell something for, and there's gross and there's net margin. You can say margin is a synonym for profit, and so profit might sound a little more understandable. Gross profit is your sale, the selling price, minus the cost of goods sold. And so cost of goods sold, this is where there are two methods, and it gets a little more nuanced here, but in general, your gross profit will be you buy the card for 30 bucks and then you sell it for 50. So your cost of goods is 30. You can add to your cost basis when you go and grade it. So that's now $20 to grade it. That goes to your cost of goods sold. And those are things above the line. Those are the main things, and that's going to be gross profit. So your gross profit percentage, it depends on what you specialize. If you're on modern cards and you're paying, for higher end 80% of comps, already that's a low margin or low gross profit. So you're 20% gross profit, and then you grade it, lower gross profit. But then below gross profit is net profit. Now your net profit will be your gross profit minus operating expenses. So primarily fees will be operating expenses, shipping. So you'll find that actually the margins or the profit margin is very low for a lot of businesses, especially if you're in singles. If you are able to find and sort, like sourcing is a challenge, but if you can buy big deals and you pay at 40% margin, like 40% cost of goods, gross margin, now you give yourself a lot more room for your operating expenses. That's a little bit of a comment there.
No, I think it's fantastic. I think learning those things is important because like I have a buddy that does this all the time, and like I'm like, all right, so what did you make? Or what was your profit? And he's like, well, I bought it for 30, I sold it for 50, and I'm like, no, like what was your gas to get to the card show? What was your card show expense? What was your, all these different things that go into this to really understand what your profit margin was. And people don't always account for all those things. And I think,
Yeah.
it's a big piece of it. So I guess I know you have recently, and not recently, you've always had a collection, but I know you're a big Mark McGuire. What is it, the 84, the 85 USA card, right?
hmm
But you've kind of just to make sure that you're staying current. I know that you're buying and you're selling and you're trying different strategies. And in the sports card space. So as an accountant, where do you see the biggest opportunity right now? I mean, grading is always the one that adds the most value. I appreciate that, right?
Yes.
But
Yep.
it's also you know, like you said, it's a lower margin sometimes. So like as an accountant outside looking in, walking into the space, really seeing where the opportunity to make the most money is, where are you putting your focus?
Yes. I have an answer for that. Briefly, regarding margins, just want to mention Um, fees are often higher than we think. And so absolutely, if the guy said I bought it for 30, sold it for 50, wow. When you really add and see truly, especially like shipping costs, if you do free shipping, that's on your margin and then the supplies and everything. Finally, when you sell everything, what is your time worth? You'll find that you made about $2 an hour for some of these things. And so that's okay when it's your hobby. You can just, I mean, enjoy it and love it and not track how much money you really make. But if you're really trying to flip it into a business, it's not easy to reach enough momentum so that your hours spent of finding deals and all this stuff is not $2 an hour, but you're closer to $50 an hour. You know, that's healthier. With that question, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but I do have an idea for an opportunity that I don't know if I wanna share, if other people will kinda jump in, but it's nothing new. Non-sports, ironically. I'm looking into non-sports. And so, actually, I bought some last night. It's funny you asked me. I bought some, 1966 Batman cards, and they are impeccable, the condition. So I'm gonna grade them. I won the auctions last night, and I'm excited to see them come in.
That's
But
awesome.
I'm thinking about focusing on the rookie cards and non-sports. And so last night I picked up the Robin Boy Wonder, that's card number 2, and then, the Joker, the Riddler. I didn't get the Catwoman one, and then, there was another few that I got. So yeah, that's a big world. I lost an auction for 2013 Frozen promotional cards. Elsa, Anna, Sven.
Yeah.
That's my daughter is really into that. So,
Yeah.
but I bid $100 and I lost.
Yeah, I think there's non-sports. I
So
mean, that's the thing about this hobby or this whatever you want to call it. Like to me, like when I've said this before on the show, like to me right now, like I have my personal collection. I have the guys that I've coached that I've got cards of them, and
awesome.
that's when I look for cards just for my own personal collection. That's what bringing in. But actually, the hobby to me has turned more into the business side of it, and just like what are the different strategies and what can I try this week, and what can and that's been more fun to me. But like, seeing and really looking at that's why I was curious on your perspective. Like you see these guys, these kids, which I mean, these kids are amazing right now. Like they understand margin, they understand, all these different things that I've never understood at all at their age. But you see all these people that are doing these case hits and they're buying it for 85% and selling it for 90%. And you're like, how do you like that's a lot of capital to tie up and a lot of risk for such a small margin. Now,
Mhm.
granted, you may not have any fees and you might know exactly who you're going to sell it to, but like that's, how do you really truly make money versus like, I know if I go through a dollar box, I'm going to pull out a card that I buy for $1 that I'm going to sell for $3. And it's like, do I
Mhm.
just do more of that, and pour gasoline on that, And so like, what strategies outside of maybe grading do you see as big opportunities for people to make a good healthy profit and start to build up that bankroll to where, like you said, you don't blink twice about spending $100 on a Frozen collection because you have the ability to do that.
The truth is it is difficult right now. Whatnot, for example, what a wonderful find 3 years ago. If you're starting a Whatnot channel now, it's a little harder to gain the traction. And so it is overall a little tricky. I mean, I would just focus on specializing and increasing your knowledge base, as many people already do, and just honing in to that because there's a lot that you can focus on, but be a specialist is my take.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice. I mean, there's like you said, there's so many different ways that you can attack this thing, and whether it's
Mhm.
non-sports, whether it's pre-war, or even junk wax. I mean, there's if you know what you're looking for, there's some.
Hey, PSA 10s for junk wax rookies is a good space. Actually, PSA 1s, you could focus on. I bought a PSA 1. It's coming in the mail today of the McGuire. That's a unique market. It's an annoying market that they price it up so high.
You should. I don't know if you want to share this actually, because I know you're trying to complete it. But do you feel comfortable sharing your McGuire collection on what you're trying to do there?
Yeah. I have it over here. This is,
I think this. I think this
yeah,
is really
1
cool.
through 10 is what I'm trying. I don't, well, yeah, I just have like 3 through 9 right now here. And then I searched every single table. I spent a lot of time looking for a PSA 10 at the National and could not find it. But I did grade 4 McGuire's and I gave them all to my son. And I have video proof of him chewing it and bending it. So I look forward to getting those back. I did buy the PSA 1, even though I do anticipate getting it back as a PSA 1 because it was like $60, which the PSA 3 through 8 go for $20. But there are recent solds of like 120 for PSA 1. So I can at minimal just, if I don't get a PSA 1 back for some reason, I can have it. And then I just like the random crazy companies. These are all PSA 8. So I just think it's just kind of fun to have like my favorite of these and then SGC. I just like the logo of this. I mean, CTA is a no name, but the back has a pretty cool hologram. So a lot of these, some of them are defunct from the early 2000s.
I think that's. I mean, that's how great. How great is that? Where you get a PSA 2 back and you're pissed because you're trying to get a PSA 1.
Mhm.
I think that's fantastic. Well, man, I appreciate you doing this. Final question here is final question, and then we have an activity to do. But just people that are interested and maybe reaching out to you, either they got questions or they actually want to go further and maybe bring you on as their accountant. How do people stay up with you and how best to get a hold of you?
Yeah, sportscardtaxguy.com. You can book a call. I'm giving free consultations right now. This is a fun one. Let me grab my pack of cards because that's what I would prefer.
That's what I'm going to do. So you don't need to.
Was a really fun project.
That's what I'm saying. You don't need to do that. We're going to do that on camera. I got my pack right here. So
Really?
we're going to
Okay.
open it.
Thanks. Good. So
that was the activity.
The main way I would say, and in there's more information, but yeah, on YouTube.
So we got as I'm opening this, tell us about this pack.
It would be really something if you pull.
I know we got to pull the 101 here or the.
Yes. So I can show what is in there. I have some pre-production cards, but yeah, it's okay. There it is.
We got the pack. So you created these cards. In there, there's an informational card to be able to download a PDF that you created that is going to answer a lot of these questions that we're talking about. I know that.
Yes.
But what else can we potentially pull from this?
Yeah, the pack has the same first 2 cards in every pack. Every pack has 3 cards. And card number 1 is my business card, basically. Card number 2 is a free consultation. There's information for that. Card 3 is your hit. And so the common card is a free ebook. I wrote 8 chapters, the sports card tax playbook. So that's your business card.
That's a card 1, business card.
And that's the okay, before you do the third one, that's the discovery call. And then of course this is 1985 Topps design. And then you want to show the back of the card 1 on the back of that would be the design of, yeah. So that's the contact info. And then for card 3, the majority of the packs will have the ebook. Oh my goodness. Okay, hold on. I think wow.
Did I pull it?
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that I completely randomly pulled the packs, and so this is interesting. I think you have something. So
I don't know if I want to show it on camera then, because we got other packs that need to be out there.
Just keep it. When you always want to keep it in and not do anything funny, but not that you have any extra. Wow. Yeah. So the common card is an ebook, which I don't think you have an ebook. I think you have something different. So that's the ebook.
Okay.
And that's the digital tax sports card playbook. And then the 3 hits, they're numbered. So there's numbered to 10 would be this one. This is pre-production, but a free tax planning session. Numbered to 5, and the real ones are holographic, is a free tax return that I'll file. And then this is the 1 of 1. So
Wow.
this includes everything.
Let's picture you. That's awesome.
But I just cannot, the chances, I'm very curious. What
All right, let's do it. And then let's see what we got. Ready?
Yes.
Hey, look at that. My dog's excited about that. That's awesome.
That
How
is
about that? I've waited specifically for this episode to open this,
interesting.
thinking
Does
full
it have a
well that
hollow? Because these were randomly inserted. The company that did this, I have no idea.
it's a little refractory. Yeah, it's
Yeah, they did a good job. What numbered, is that out of 5?
4 or 5 or
Okay,
yeah, 4 or
wow,
5. So
interesting.
there's 4 others out there, right?
Yes,
So,
I did see one of those. There's 3 left.
how about that?
I
That's
That's the
awesome.
second one I've ever seen, pulled. That is so
Really? Somebody
cool.
else has pulled one already.
Yeah, there's 3 more left of those, and then there's, like, 9 of the tax planning ones left.
Yeah, I gotta
Unbelievable.
get some sleeves here. That's pretty cool, man. No,
Uh,
that's exciting.
so just follow the QR code on the back. There's some instructions on how to redeem it.
I'll talk to my tax guy. He'll figure it out
Okay.
for me. No, that's awesome, man. Well, I think this was really cool. You and I have talked about this even before I opened this, and I only bought well, I guess you could only buy one. I was gonna buy a bunch of them,
Yeah.
but you can
Yeah.
only buy one. But talk a little bit about the process of this because I thought it was cool. Like, I think, I think I heard maybe Bobby Witt or somebody like that did sports cards of, like, one-on-ones for his groomsmen or something like that. I thought that that was really cool. Like, go through the little bit of the process of doing this and the just, inspiration behind it and the steps and then how I mean, that had to be cool for you to see that being pulled even.
Yeah, I it was a lot of work because there's a back and forth design. I'm a spreadsheet accountant, so this do have some creative side, but yeah, you just gotta finalize your designs, and then I found a supplier and, like, made sure it was quality, and I'm glad to see that that's an actual shiny card and
Yeah,
everything
no,
that I specified. So, yeah, I wanna do
that's
it every
great.
year and then change up the designs and add more. There's 250 packs in this run. So, yeah, it's a fun project.
Got a little bit of a print line, so I don't know if it's gonna grade a 10, but
Alright.
that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, it speaks to, I think, what you're doing in this space. I think you're taking a little bit different approach to a common profession, right? Something that's been around
Mhm.
for hundreds of years, but you're putting your spin on it and using your knowledge, your legacy, all the things that make this hobby great, I'm sure I know you said that before we even started hitting record that your dad's up there at your house right now. It's got to create a new conversation for the two of you and all that. So I appreciate what you're doing. I know how much work goes into putting out content like this, and you're killing
Mhm.
it on that space. But then turn around and being helping so many other people that are in the hobby. I think it's fantastic. So appreciate you, man.
Thank you.